No navy on Earth has ever lost a submarine to an unmanned underwater vehicle. Not in testing, not in simulation, not in 70 years of Cold War cat and mouse beneath the ocean surface. Submarines are the most protected assets any fleet possesses. They hide in the deep. They move in silence. They are, by doctrine and by design, untouchable. Until February 12, 2026, Novorossiysk, Russia's primary Black Sea naval base, home to what remains of the Black Sea Fleet's submarine force. And on that night, something entered the harbor that no Russian sensor detected, no patrol boat spotted, and no sonar array classified. A Ukrainian autonomous underwater drone. Displacement, approximately 900 kilograms. Speed, 3 knots. Depth, 11 meters. Moving along the silted harbor floor like a slow-crawling shadow. Its target, the Kilo-class submarine B-265 Krasnodar, one of Russia's last operational attack boats in the Black Sea. The explosion tore a 4-meter gash below the waterline on the starboard side. Damage control teams fought for 11 hours to prevent the vessel from settling onto the harbor bottom. The Krasnodar would not deploy again for months. This was the first confirmed autonomous underwater drone strike against a submarine in the history of naval warfare. And the shockwave from that blast didn't stop at Novorossiysk. It traveled through every admiralty, every war college, every submarine command on the planet. I'm your host at Navy Battlefront, where we break down the most critical naval operations shaping global power. Today, we're reconstructing the operation that rewrote the rules of undersea warfare and the technology that made it possible. Because this wasn't a lucky hit. This was a calculated, pre-programmed autonomous mission that exploited 3 separate failures in Russian harbor defense. And the weapon that did it cost less than a mid-range sedan. To understand how Ukraine pulled this off, you need to understand what Novorossiysk looked like in early 2026. After the losses of 2022 and 2023, the Moskva, the Rostov-on-Don, the Minsk, the Novorossiysk, Russia consolidated what remained of its Black Sea combat power. Sevastopol, once the crown jewel of the fleet, had become too exposed. Ukrainian cruise missiles, naval drones, and long-range strike systems had turned the western Black Sea into a contested zone. So the Russians moved east. Novorossiysk, sitting in the Semez Bay on the northeastern coast, became the fleet's primary operating base by mid-2024. It was farther from Ukrainian launch positions. It had better air defense coverage, and it had something Sevastopol increasingly lacked: depth. The harbor at Novorossiysk offered sheltered berths for submarines, corvettes, and patrol vessels. Russian engineers installed layered defenses. Anti-torpedo nets stretched across the harbor mouth. Sonar arrays monitored the approaches. Surface patrols ran 24 hours a day. Underwater cameras covered the netline. On paper, it was secure. But paper doesn't account for a weapon that didn't exist 2 years earlier. Ukrainian defense engineers had been developing unmanned surface vessels since 2022. The Sea Baby drone, a fast, explosive-laden boat that skimmed the surface at 40 knots, had already proven devastating. It struck the Kerch Bridge. It damaged Russian patrol ships. It forced the fleet out of Sevastopol. But surface drones had a limitation. They were visible. Radar could track them. Machine guns could engage them. And harbor defenses, booms, chains, patrol boats, could stop them before they reached high-value targets. The question Ukrainian engineers asked in late 2024 was simple. What if the drone went under? The program was classified. According to sources familiar with the development effort, fewer than 40 people in Ukraine's defense establishment knew the full scope of the project. It operated under the Main Intelligence Directorate, the GUR, which had already demonstrated a willingness to pursue unconventional strike methods. The concept was straightforward. Build a small, slow, autonomous submersible. Load it with a shaped charge warhead. Program it with sonar waypoints. Let it navigate itself to the target. The engineering was not straightforward at all. An underwater drone operating autonomously cannot rely on GPS. Satellite signals do not penetrate seawater. Communication is impossible at depth without surfacing, which creates a detection signature. The drone had to navigate blind, using inertial guidance, preloaded bathymetric maps, and passive sonar to identify waypoints. Think of it as giving a robot a hand-drawn map of an underwater maze, then telling it to find one specific wall inside a defended harbor, without ever looking up. Ukrainian engineers solved this problem through months of iteration. They tested prototypes in reservoirs, in rivers, in the open Black Sea. Each test refined the navigation algorithm. Each failure pointed to a sensor calibration, a buoyancy problem, a propulsion noise signature that needed suppression. By October 2025, the system was ready for operational testing. The first live deployment occurred on November 3, 2025. A single drone was launched from a civilian vessel approximately 190 nautical miles west of Novorossiysk. The vessel, a modified fishing trawler operating under a commercial flag, deployed the drone at night, 30 kilometers offshore. The drone submerged to its operating depth of 11 meters and began its transit. It never reached the harbor. 19 hours into the mission, the drone's inertial navigation system drifted. A current anomaly in the Sems Bay approach pushed the vehicle 400 meters off course. It struck a submerged breakwater piling and detonated. Russian harbor defense reported the explosion as a possible mine detonation. Divers found fragments of the drone's hull casing, but the debris was so fragmented and the design so unfamiliar that the initial assessment classified it as a remnant of an old sea mine disturbed by currents. This was the first failure. Not Ukraine's failure, Russia's. The fragments were sent to a naval intelligence unit in Rostov-on-Don for analysis. The report took 11 days to produce. By the time analysts concluded, the debris was consistent with an unmanned submersible, not a legacy mine. The window for heightened alert had closed. Harbor defense returned to standard posture. The anti-torpedo nets were inspected and certified intact. Patrols continued on their regular schedule. No one in the Russian chain of command ordered an upgrade to the sonar monitoring protocol. No one questioned whether the net system was designed to stop a threat this small and this slow. That was the second failure. The third failure was structural. The anti-torpedo net system at Novorossiysk was designed in the Soviet era and modernized in 2019. It was engineered to stop torpedo-sized objects moving at torpedo speeds, 20 to 50 knots, with acoustic signatures that sonar arrays could classify. The Ukrainian drone moved at 3 knots. Its acoustic signature was barely distinguishable from harbor ambient noise. The hum of generators, the clang of mooring chains, the churn of tugboat propellers. At that speed, and at that noise level, the drone was functionally invisible to the sonar arrays tuned for high-speed threats. And the net itself had a gap, a maintenance access point near the southern edge of the harbor mouth, used by divers and small service boats. The gap was approximately 2 meters wide and extended from the surface to the harbor floor. It was monitored by an underwater camera. The camera was operational, but it was a fixed-angle system with limited low-light capability. At 11 meters depth, in the turbid waters of Sems Bay, visibility dropped below 3 meters on a calm night. On a night with harbor traffic stirring sediment, it dropped to less than 1. February 12, 2026 was not a calm night. GUR planners chose the date deliberately. Weather forecasts showed a low-pressure system moving across the eastern Black Sea. Wind speeds of 25 to 30 knots. Sea state 4, enough to churn surface water and increase harbor turbidity. Enough to make small boat patrols miserable and less attentive. Not enough to prevent submarine operations or close the port. The drone launched at 1400 on February 10th. Deployment point: 44.2 degrees north, 36.8 degrees east. approximately 160 nautical miles from Novorossiysk. A different launch vessel this time. A Ukrainian-flagged cargo ship transiting the standard commercial shipping lane between Odessa and the Turkish coast. The drone entered the water through a modified ballast discharge port. No visible deployment, no surface signature. The cargo ship continued on its registered course toward Istanbul. Beneath the surface, the drone descended to 11 meters and oriented itself on the first waypoint. The transit would take approximately 53 hours at 3 knots. The drone's lithium iron phosphate battery pack was rated for 72 hours of continuous operation at that speed. Margin of error, 19 hours, enough to account for current drift and course corrections. For the next 2 days, the drone crept eastward across the Black Sea floor. It navigated using a combination of inertial measurement, accelerometers and gyroscopes tracking every movement, and passive sonar waypoints. Ukrainian intelligence had mapped the acoustic signatures of specific undersea features along the approach route. A pipeline junction that hummed at a characteristic frequency. A submerged wreck that created a distinctive echo pattern. A section of rocky seabed where tidal flow produced a low-frequency resonance. Each of these acoustic landmarks served as a checkpoint. When the drone's passive sonar detected the expected signature, it confirmed its position and adjusted course. This was not artificial intelligence in the way most people imagine it. There was no thinking, no decision-making. The drone followed a script, a series of if-then commands written months earlier by engineers who had mapped every meter of the approach. If acoustic signature matches waypoint 4, adjust heading to 087. If depth exceeds 13 meters, rise to 11. If battery charge drops below 40%, abort and scuttle. Simple logic, devastating application. At approximately 3 o'clock on February 12th, the drone reached the outer approaches of Semez Bay. This was the most dangerous phase. The bay narrows as it approaches the harbor. Shipping traffic increases. Russian patrol boats operate on irregular schedules specifically to prevent pattern recognition, and the sonar arrays covering the approach are denser than anywhere else on the route. The drone slowed to 1.5 knots. At this speed, its already minimal acoustic signature dropped further. It was now quieter than most biological noise in the bay. Quieter than a pod of dolphins. Quieter than a school of fish moving through a thermocline. Russian sonar operators on duty that night were monitoring for 3 threat categories: fast-moving surface contacts, submarine speed underwater contacts, and anomalous acoustic events. The drone fit none of these categories. It was too slow for any classification algorithm in the Russian system. One operator, identified in subsequent Ukrainian intelligence reports only by his watch station, Sonar Post 3, noted a faint, intermittent contact at 0322. He logged it as possible biological, bearing 245, no classification. Standard procedure required him to report unclassified contacts to the watch officer. He did not. This was not negligence in the traditional sense. Russian sonar operators at Novorossiysk logged an average of 40 to 60 unclassified contacts per shift. Harbor environments are acoustically chaotic. Fish, debris, currents, engine noise from commercial vessels, reflections off the harbor walls. All of it creates a constant stream of phantom contacts. The operator had been on duty for 6 hours. His shift was scheduled to end at 4 o'clock. The contact appeared once, faded, and did not recur on his next sweep. He moved on. At 3:41, the drone reached the harbor mouth. The anti-torpedo net stretched across the entrance. Cables, floats, and weighted mesh designed to entangle or deflect incoming weapons. Effective against torpedoes. Effective against fast-moving surface drones. Not designed for something this small, this slow, and this patient. The drone's navigation algorithm had the net's position mapped to within 2 meters of accuracy. Ukrainian intelligence had obtained the net's layout through satellite imagery analysis, supplemented by reports from agents operating in the Krasnodar region. The maintenance access gap was plotted as waypoint 11, the final checkpoint before the terminal phase. The drone adjusted its depth to 9 meters. It slowed to 1 knot. It entered the gap. The underwater camera recorded nothing. Turbidity in the gap zone exceeded the camera's effective range. The drone passed within 1.2 meters of the lens. Inside the harbor, the terminal phase was the simplest part of the mission and the most critical. The drone had to locate the Krasnodar's hull, approach to contact range, and detonate its shaped charge warhead against the submarine's pressure hull below the waterline. The Krasnodar was berthed at Pier 7, the submarine berth on the eastern side of the harbor. Its position had been confirmed by satellite imagery taken 14 hours before the drone launched. Ukrainian analysts knew the exact berth, the orientation of the hull, and the depth of the waterline. The drone navigated to Pier 7 using its final set of acoustic waypoints, the characteristic sound of the harbor's diesel generators, the rhythm of the pier's mooring winches, and the low hum of the Krasnodar's own auxiliary systems running at idle. A Kilo-class submarine in port is not silent. Its ventilation systems run. Its battery charging systems cycle. Its auxiliary generators produce a steady, identifiable acoustic fingerprint. The drone homed on that fingerprint. At 4:07 local time, the drone made contact with the Krasnodar's hull, starboard side, approximately 3 meters below the waterline. Frame 47, the section between the torpedo room and the main battery compartment. The shaped charge warhead detonated. The explosion was not massive in conventional terms. The warhead carried approximately 50 kilograms of high explosive. Compared to a torpedo, which carries 250 to 300 kilograms, it was modest. But a shaped charge focuses its energy. Instead of an omnidirectional blast, the detonation concentrated into a penetrating jet of superheated metal and gas directed against the hull plating. The result? A 4-meter gash torn through the outer hull and into the ballast tank structure. Water flooded the starboard ballast tanks immediately. The submarine began listing. The explosion hit at 4:07. By 4:09, alarms were sounding across the harbor. The Krasnodar's duty crew, 11 sailors aboard for overnight watch, scrambled to implement damage control procedures. The commanding officer, who was billeted ashore, received notification at 4:12. He reached the pier by 4:31. The damage was below the waterline, but had not breached the pressure hull. This distinction was critical. A pressure hull breach at pier depth would have flooded interior compartments, potentially sinking the submarine at its berth and killing crew members. The outer hull breach and ballast tank flooding caused a severe list, but left the inner hull intact. Russian damage control teams faced an immediate problem. The submarine was taking on water faster than the onboard bilge pumps could remove it. The starboard list reached 9 degrees within the first 30 minutes. At 12 degrees, the mooring lines would be at risk of snapping. At 15 degrees, equipment inside the submarine would begin shifting, creating cascading damage. Harbor tugs arrived at 4:45. They pressed against the port side of the Krasnodar, physically holding the submarine upright, while portable salvage pumps were brought to the pier. The first external pump was operational at 5:20, a second at 5:38, a third at 6:10. For 11 hours, teams pumped water, reinforced temporary patches from the outside using divers, and gradually stabilized the vessel. By 1500 on February 12th, the list had been reduced to 2 degrees. The Krasnodar was stable but immobile. The submarine would require dry dock repairs. The nearest suitable dry dock was in Novorossiysk itself, but it was occupied by a damaged frigate undergoing its own repairs from a previous Ukrainian strike. The Krasnodar would wait. Declassified assessments from Allied intelligence services estimated the Krasnodar would be non-operational for a minimum of 4 to 6 months. Some analysts put the figure higher, 8 months or more, depending on the availability of hull plating and skilled welders, both of which Russia's shipbuilding industry was struggling to supply. For the Black Sea Fleet, This was more than the loss of one submarine. The Krasnodar was one of only 2 operational Kilo-class boats remaining in the theater. Its sister ship, the Kolpino, had been operating on a reduced patrol schedule due to maintenance backlogs. With the Krasnodar out of action, Russia's submarine capability in the Black Sea effectively dropped to a single, overtaxed vessel. The strategic implications radiated outward. Russian submarine operations in the Black Sea had served 3 functions: intelligence collection against NATO naval movements, deterrence of Ukrainian maritime activity, and the potential to launch Caliber cruise missiles against Ukrainian targets from submerged positions. With one submarine damaged and the other struggling to maintain operational tempo, all 3 functions degraded simultaneously. Ukrainian naval planners recognized this immediately. In the weeks following the strike, Ukrainian commercial shipping in the western Black Sea increased. The grain corridor, which had operated under constant threat of Russian interdiction, saw transit times decrease as insurance premiums dropped. The absence of a credible submarine threat changed the calculus for every vessel operating in the region, but the strategic impact extended far beyond the Black Sea. Within 72 hours of the attack, the United States Navy issued a classified fleet-wide advisory on autonomous underwater vehicle threats to pierside assets. The advisory, portions of which were leaked to defense media outlets by March 2026, acknowledged that existing harbor defense systems across the U.S. Navy were not optimized to detect slow-moving autonomous submersibles. Think about what that means. The most powerful navy in the world looked at what Ukraine did with a drone that cost less than $100,000 and concluded, "We are vulnerable to this too." The Royal Navy conducted an emergency review of harbor defenses at Faslane, home to Britain's nuclear submarine fleet. France ordered an assessment of Toulon. Japan reviewed Yokosuka. Every nation that operates submarines from fixed bases suddenly had the same question: could this happen to us? The answer, according to multiple naval analysts who spoke on condition of anonymity, was yes. The technology Ukraine used was not exotic. The components, lithium batteries, inertial navigation units, passive sonar arrays, shaped charge warheads, were all commercially available or easily manufactured. The innovation was in the integration. Ukrainian engineers combined off-the-shelf technology with meticulous intelligence work and operational patience to create a weapon system that no existing defense was designed to counter. This is the pattern Ukraine has established throughout the war, not matching Russia in conventional power, but finding the seams, the gaps, the assumptions that haven't been tested. Russia assumed its harbor defenses could stop underwater threats. They were designed against torpedoes, weapons that move fast and make noise. No one tested them against something that moved at walking speed and sounded like a fish. Russia assumed its sonar operators would catch anomalies. But harbor sonar is overwhelmed with noise, and operators are overwhelmed with false contacts. In that environment, a 3-knot drone is not an anomaly. It's invisible. Russia assumed the anti-torpedo net was sufficient. But the net had a gap, a known gap, a necessary gap for harbor maintenance. And that gap was never hardened against a threat that could exploit it. 3 assumptions, 3 failures, 1 submarine out of action. If you're tracking how autonomous systems are changing naval warfare, subscribe to Navy Battlefront. These aren't isolated incidents anymore. This is the future arriving faster than any Navy planned for. The Russian response was predictable in its pattern, but revealing in its scope. Within a week of the attack, Novorossiysk harbor defense underwent what Russian Naval Command described as a comprehensive modernization. Satellite imagery from late February showed new sonar arrays being installed along the harbor approach. The anti-torpedo net was extended, and the maintenance gap was fitted with a remotely operated gate system. Additional underwater cameras with enhanced low-light capability were mounted at the harbor mouth. Surface patrols doubled. Divers conducted twice-daily inspections of the net line and pier structures. Electronic warfare systems were deployed to jam potential communication links, even though the Ukrainian drone didn't use any communication links during its terminal phase. This last detail was significant. The Russian countermeasures focused heavily on jamming and signal interception, techniques effective against remotely operated drones, but useless against a fully autonomous system. It suggested that Russian naval intelligence had not fully grasped the nature of the weapon that hit them. They were defending against the last war. The Ukrainian drone didn't need a command signal. It didn't need GPS. It didn't need a human operator making decisions in real time. It was a fire-and-forget weapon in the truest sense, launched, programmed, and left alone to execute its mission. Countering that requires a fundamentally different approach to harbor defense. Not jamming, not signal detection, physical barriers with no gaps, acoustic systems tuned to detect contacts at walking speed, machine learning algorithms that can distinguish a drone from a fish in a noisy harbor environment. None of these solutions existed in operational form in February 2026. Some were in development, some were in testing, but none were deployed at Novorossiysk when it mattered. The GUR released no official statement confirming the operation. Ukrainian military intelligence rarely claims specific attacks directly, but on February 14th, 2 days after the strike, the GUR's official Telegram channel posted a single image, a sonar screen showing a small contact approaching a large, stationary object. No caption, no explanation. The defense intelligence community understood immediately. Allied intelligence services confirmed the strike through satellite imagery, showing the Krasnodar listing at its berth, surrounded by support vessels and salvage equipment. Damage assessments were compiled and shared through NATO intelligence channels within 5 days. The confirmation created a diplomatic ripple. Turkey, which controls access to the Black Sea through the Bosphorus Strait and had been maintaining a careful neutrality, privately expressed concern about autonomous weapons transiting commercial shipping lanes. The Ukrainian launch vessel had passed through Turkish-monitored waters. The drone itself had traveled through international waters of the Black Sea before entering Russian territorial waters near Novorossiysk. No international law specifically addressed autonomous underwater weapons transiting international waters. The legal framework for undersea warfare was built around submarines, manned vessels with human commanders making targeting decisions. A fully autonomous drone that navigated, identified, and attacked a target without human intervention in the terminal phase occupied a legal gray zone that no treaty had anticipated. The United Nations Convention on the Law of the Sea had nothing to say about it. The laws of armed conflict required proportionality and distinction, but those principles assumed a human decision-maker. Who was responsible for the drone's targeting decision? The engineers who programmed its waypoints? The intelligence officers who identified the Krasnodar's berth? The commander who authorized the launch? These questions had no answers in February 2026. They still don't. Comment drone if you think autonomous underwater weapons should be regulated under international law. The debate is just beginning. The operational lessons from the Novorossiysk strike cascaded through military planning circles at extraordinary speed. The U.S. Naval War College in Newport, Rhode Island, convened an emergency seminar in March 2026. The topic: autonomous underwater threats to fixed naval installations. Attendees included representatives from 12 navies. The conclusions, summarized in a report that circulated through defense think tanks, were stark. First, existing harbor defense architectures worldwide were designed against manned threats or remotely operated systems. Autonomous underwater vehicles represented a category of threat that fell outside current defensive paradigms. Second, the cost asymmetry was devastating. A Kilo-class submarine costs approximately $350 million. The Ukrainian drone, by best estimates, cost between $80,000 and $130,000. That is a cost ratio of roughly 3,000 to 1. No navy can sustain losses at that exchange rate. Third, the proliferation risk was severe. The technology involved was not classified. It was not restricted by export controls. Any nation, any non-state actor, any sufficiently motivated engineering team could build a similar weapon within 12 to 18 months. The barrier to entry was knowledge, not hardware. This third point alarmed planners the most. Ukraine built this weapon out of necessity, under wartime pressure, with limited resources. A wealthier nation, or a well-funded non-state group, could build something far more capable, faster, deeper, with a larger warhead, with multiple drones operating in coordinated swarms. The scenario that kept admirals awake: 30 autonomous drones, launched from a commercial vessel in a busy shipping lane, converging on a naval base from multiple directions simultaneously. No communications to intercept, no radar signatures to track, each one navigating independently to a pre-assigned target. Current defenses could not stop that. Not in 2026, not with any system currently deployed or in late-stage testing. China took notice. The People's Liberation Army Navy operates from large, fixed bases on the Chinese coast: Yulin on Hainan Island, Qingdao in the north, Zhoushan near Shanghai. Each hosts submarines. Each faces potential adversaries with the technological capacity to replicate what Ukraine demonstrated. Beijing ordered an immediate review of harbor defense at all major plan installations. Details remained classified, but satellite imagery showed new construction activity at Yulin's submarine pens beginning in March 2026. Additional breakwaters, new sensor installations, and what appeared to be autonomous underwater patrol vehicles of China's own design. The arms race had already begun. Back in the Black Sea, the Krasnodar sat at Pier 7 with temporary patches and salvage pumps still attached. Divers worked in shifts to prepare the hull for transfer to dry dock. The frigate occupying the dry dock was rushed through its own repairs to make space. Russian state media acknowledged damage to a naval vessel at Novorossiysk on February 15th, but attributed it to a floating mine from earlier phases of the conflict. No mention of a drone, no mention of an autonomous weapon, no mention of the 11-hour fight to save the submarine. Independent Russian military bloggers, the same channels that had accurately reported the sinking of the Moskva years earlier, told a different story. They described the damage accurately. They identified the weapon type, and they asked the question that Russian Naval Command did not want to answer. How did it get through? The answer was uncomfortable because it was systemic. The drone got through because every layer of defense was optimized against a different threat. The nets stopped torpedoes. The sonar caught fast movers. The patrols watched the surface. The cameras covered the entry points in good visibility. But nothing covered the gap between those layers. The space where a small, slow, quiet, autonomous vehicle could slip through, like water through a sieve. This is the lesson of February 12th, 2026. Not that one submarine was damaged. Submarines have been damaged before. The Rostov-on-Don was destroyed in dry dock. The lesson is that the era of guaranteed sanctuary, the idea that a naval base is inherently safe, ended that night. Every submarine pen, every aircraft carrier berth, every naval installation on Earth is now a potential target for a weapon that costs less than a luxury car. The Krasnodar will eventually return to service. The hull will be repaired. The systems will be restored. Russia will adapt its defenses. But the technology that struck it will also evolve. Faster navigation algorithms, better sonar homing, smaller signatures, larger warheads, coordinated swarms, each iteration cheaper than the last. Naval warfare changed on February 12th, not with a missile salvo, not with an airstrike, not with a fleet engagement, with a slow, patient machine crawling along the harbor floor at 3 knots. The next time it happens, and it will happen again, The target might not be a Russian submarine at Novorossiysk. It might be a carrier at Norfolk, a boomer at Kings Bay, a destroyer at Yokosuka. No navy has solved this problem yet, and every navy knows it.